सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So, Shankaracharya is dealing with the topic of the qualifications of a student desirous of self-knowledge. Of the 4 qualifications that he outlined, we have actually discussed Viveka and Vairagyam, discrimination and dispassion. The third one is a group of 6 Shatka Sampattihi, a group of 6 internal wealth or virtues. Of them, we have actually seen Shamaha, Damaha, Uparamaha, Titiksha, and Shraddha, the 5th virtue. So, Shraddha is a very important faculty, which is the attitude that we have or we should develop towards the scriptures and the Guru Parampara. We saw this in detail in the last class. And you might recall that I also said that Shastram is a primary pramanam. This is all said in the Shastra itself, right? It's not something that I am telling or any Acharya is telling. So, Shastram is a primary pramanam, therefore called Upajivya pramanam, and it is not a secondary source of knowledge, not a Upajivi pramanam. And since it is a primary source of knowledge, it gives a knowledge which cannot be gained through any other source of knowledge. So, I did talk about the 5 sense organs and Shastram and how Shastram is having the very same kind of independent source status, right? So it is unique. And at the same time, the knowledge which is derived from that can never be contradicted by any other source of knowledge. So it is not derivable through other sources. At the same time, it can never be contradicted or refuted or challenged by any other source. So it is called Abhaditattvam. So during the study of Vedanta, what happens is sometimes we will feel that the Vedantic teaching is contradicting our sensory experiences, or it will appear that Vedantic teaching is contradicting a little bit of, logic somewhere. Once we feel so, right, then we will start doubting the validity of Vedanta, and there could be a dent that it can affect our Shraddha. Therefore, the moment we have that feeling, we have to resolve that issue. And in fact, Vedanta itself considers that a very important exercise. And we have to resolve all the seeming contradictions existing between Vedanta and other sources of knowledge. And this process is called Mananam. And I always believe, as people in the Grihastha Ashrama, we are slightly disadvantaged because imagine just attending one class like Vedanta, which is so abstract, once a week, right? And then you don't revise, right? And then you go for the next class. It's like starting with a blank slate. So what happens is sometimes you feel there is, some logical problem or some conflict here and there, etc. Now, if you take the trouble of moving into a more like serious seeker with regular hours and plan exactly the way that we normally have a timetable in a school, right? That rigid curriculum and those hours and how much has to be covered every year, etc. Maybe then when you build this up so fast, one after the other, and we also have tests and exams, remember, in school and colleges, then these doubts get removed even faster and earlier. In the absence of that, we have to take that extra effort to make sure that we remember and we connect and we resolve. Brahma Sutra actually does a great job of this, because that is purpose of Brahma Sutra. And I thought I must mention that in the very first class, actually when I mentioned this, it is called Nyaya Prasthana and not actually Jnana Prasthana. It was an oversight, because I think in one of my notes, I had noted down maybe 15 years back as Jnana Prasthana. I haven't seen that usage. I've only seen the usage Nyaya. Nyaya means logic, right? So using logic in Brahma Sutra itself, many of these seeming conflicts are resolved, right? But it is important for us to be patient and resolve these. For instance, in the second chapter of the Brahma Sutra, it has 157 sutras, and clearly it is dedicated to show that Vedantic teaching never contradicts sensory perceptions as well as logical reasoning. Therefore, having Shraddha in Vedanta doesn't make me irrational or illogical, right? Shraddha and rationality will always go together, right? And we need not, and we definitely need not become irrational for developing Shraddha towards Vedantic teaching. So we need not ever become unscientific also, right? So we need not sacrifice our intellect too. We need not surrender our attitude. In fact, we have to keep it because Vedanta requires a lot of intellectual reasoning. There's the attitude that Vedanta is a primary source, but we can find ways and means by which we understand it better in terms of resolving any seeming conflicts or logical analysis or reasoning. That attitude is called Shraddha, a very, very important virtue, which we completed in the last class, and we actually entered Samadhanam, the sixth sub-discipline. And there we were discussing that Samadhanam is Chitta Ekagrata or mental concentration or focusing faculty. Sarvada Sthapanam, right? Samyak Sthapanam. So it's a very beautiful reading. Sarvada Sthapanam. Samadhanam is derived from the word root, I said, right? It is from Datte, Dadati, right? So, Sarvada Sthapanam Buddhehe. So, generally our mind is wandering. So, I was speaking about the importance of Samadhanam and that focusing faculty we have to develop. And that is developed through Upasana Yoga, meditation, which is also considered part of Karma Yoga only. So, in the second chapter of the Gita, we actually see Acharya saying that, right? So, the yoga samsiddhihi, that samadhi yoga is very important. And samadhi yoga is nothing but upasana yoga. Daily meditation actually helps us in developing this focusing faculty. And for meditation, initially we make use of God, Ekarupa Ishvara, mostly our Ishtadevata as the version of God on whom we meditate. Then we move to Vishwarupa Ishvara. I spoke about the Vishnu Sahasranama Dhyana Shloka. And then when we come to Vedanta, we meditate on Bhagavan as the absolute reality without any attributes. Nirguna Brahma or Shuddha Brahma. So thus, we meditate focusing on Ekarupa, Vishwarupa or Shuddha Brahma, which is Nirgunam Brahma. And this process is called Chitta Samadhanam. And another word used for this in yoga is Samadhi. And they call it Savikalpa Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Samadhi means focusing. We are not going to get into Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa Samadhi difference. Yes, at some point in time, we can discuss this later on. So, Shuddhe Brahmani Sarvada. After coming to Vedanta, a spiritual seeker is introduced to Nirgunam Brahma. By consistent and systematic study, first I understand who or what is that Nirgunam Brahma, and later I can focus my mind and dwell on the teachings for a length of time, which is called Nididhyasanam, not in the beginning. After studying Vedanta for some time, when I understand Nirgunam Brahman as myself, dwelling upon Brahman as myself is called Chitta Samadhanam, concentration. Sarvata, somebody asked the difference between why Sarvada and Sarvata is there. Sarvata is by all means and Sarvada is always. So, in fact, any concentration is generally Samadhanam, and here Sarvada Sthapanam Buddhehe Brahmani, right? So, concentration on Brahman, Sarvada always, with commitment, fixing, focusing, right, of the mind, focusing on the Nirgunam Brahma, the pure reality, right? and not some Ishta Devata. So, therefore, Sarvada, Sarva Prakarena, at all times through various methods, through Shravanam, which is listening from a teacher, Mananam, reflecting upon the teaching over and over again, Nididhyasanam, dwelling upon the teaching, through Shravanam, Mananam, and through Nididhyasanam. Through all these intellectual exercises, we are always keeping our intellect only in the ultimate reality. This type of exercise, right, it can vary, the type of exercise can vary, but the object on which all this is centered is Brahman alone. So, Sarvada Shravana Manana Nididhyasana Rupena Shuddhe Brahmani Sthapanam, that is Samadhanam, Tat Samadhanam iti Uktam. So, that is called the concentration faculty, right? So, we know how much our concentration is if we observe at the end of this 55 minutes class, how much of the time we were actually focused in the class and how much of the time our brain or mind just goes around for a tour or an excursion and comes back, right? So without any distraction, if I can remain in the class, right? So that is samadhanam or concentration. So natu chittasya lalanam. The lalanam, popular meaning is fondling a baby, right? Playing with the child. In this context, lalanam means pampering the mind or allowing the mind to do whatever it wants, right? So letting the mind loose, go astray. Strangely, I've been thinking about this. In childhood, we generally teach children to do other things, right? Physical exercises, run, etc. But we don't actually focus on this concentration and, controlling the mind, etc. And so for this purpose, if you see, some families used either a puja, manasa puja, or of course, Sandhya Vandanam for developing this concentration faculty, which is very practical and useful even for the material world, like for studying and all of them. This is such an important faculty, right? So basically, Samadhanam here is, of course, it is on Nirgunam Brahman, but in general, preventing this lalanam and having this focus is very, very important for even materialistic pursuit. And so strangely, while we do a lot of exercises, jogging, walking, etc., but we seem to be doing too much of multitasking these days, right? So Shastra never allows that. In fact, Vedanta Shravanam, etc., especially, right, with no exception, must be done 100% exclusively. So even if you're doing multiple things simultaneously, I will tell you what Swamiji told me, right? There are some things which you may be okay to listen on a treadmill or walking or whatever it is, but the Prasthanatrayam, the serious teachings like Upanishad, Gita, and all of them, everything is serious for that matter, right? But if there are some casual ones of, say, New Year talks or something that somebody is giving, you can listen when you're walking or, on the treadmill. But otherwise, it is important to sit down, listen, and make notes. Only then that concentration will improve, right? So, otherwise, it's like exactly like the baby, the mind just goes out, right? So, natu chittasya lalanam basically means no multitasking and controlling the mind. So, with this, the sixth subdivision, which is samadhanam. So, shamaha, damaha, uparamaha, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam put together is called shatka sampatti. And so, for all these, right, four of them, if you see out of these six, shamaha, damaha, uparama, and samadhanam, right? All of them, even in Tattva Bodha, you can see they are all right. You will develop through Upasana Yoga and Karma Yoga. And so if you look at that, the journey towards developing any of these values is again only Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. So Sarvada Sthapanam Buddhehe Shuddhe Brahmani Sarvatha Tat Samadhanam Ityuktam Natu Chittasya Lalanam. So let's continue. Ahankaradidehantan
ahankaradidehantan
bandhanajnanakalpitan
bandhanajnanakalpitan
swaswarupavabodhena
swaswarupavabodhena
moktumichhamumukshuta.
muktumichhamumukshuta.
So the fourth main qualification. So now we've completed the first three qualification, right? So then we have come to the desire for moksha, which is the fourth one of the disciplines, right? The fourth qualification. Discipline we use for the Shatka Sampatti. So the fourth main qualification is mumukshutvam, desire for moksha. Here Shankaracharya defines moksha as freedom from bondage, dropping the bondage, dropping the shackles, basically, right? So we need to understand a little bit of background of Vedanta for this. So in the vision of Vedanta, our body, mind, sense organs, etc. are just instruments or costumes that we use for worldly transactions. Just as when we go out, right, we dress up with an inner garment, a t-shirt, a shirt, and if we are, say, in some cold country, some thermal wear, then coat, overcoat, etc., right? Sweaters. So different layers we wear for worldly transactions. So according to Vedanta, the body, mind, sense organs, intellect are only such different layers or mediums through which we transact in the world. And since they are only instruments of the mediums, right, or mediums, Vedanta insists that they are only used by us, they are not us. So I use the body, I'm not the body. I use the sense organs, I'm not the sense organs. I use the mind, I'm not the mind. I'm someone who's different from all these. And this fact is uniquely revealed by Vedanta. Strangely, in common parlance, no living being, no human being knows this fact. And in fact, until you come to Vedanta, this fact is not even spoken about or known, because it's baffling, right, to understand this. So Vedanta doesn't even attempt. There are some indications through which you know, but to think about it and listen to the Shastra talking about it requires a lot of punyam, as I said, right? So it is a surprising revelation by Vedanta that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the sense organs, right? We are going to see all this in detail later, but a little bit we have to explain here to get into the subject. So there are different layers. If you have already gone through Tattva Bodha, you might be familiar with the Pancha Kosha, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. These are like all our costumes or coats. So they are called Anatma, and I'm someone who's different from all of them. And this real I, which is different from them, is called the Atma. So I am the Atma, and the body, mind, sense complex is Anatma, right? And according to Vedanta, the body, mind, sense complex, the Anatma, has got varieties of limitations. Time-wise, they are limited. They are mortal. Space-wise, they are limited, because if I'm located in this place, I'm not located in the other place, right? So by being one type of individual, you are not another type. So this is called Desha Kala Vastu Parichedaha. So Anatma has got all forms of limitations, and therefore it has got mortality also. So while Anatma is mortal and subject to suffering, Atma, the real I, is free from am. I am free from all these limitations. I am the limitless absolute reality. That is the teaching of the Vedanta. Right? Further details we'll see in the text itself is going to go deeper and deeper into it. So it is a fact that I'm not aware of my real nature, that I am eternal, I am ignorant of, and because of this self-ignorance, right, I have self-misconception. I don't know that I am Atma. I mistake myself to be the Anatma. I mistake myself to be the body. I say, right, I'm growing old, right? My legs are paining, etc., right? So I am the body. I am Anatma, mine, mamakara and ahankara. So I am the body, I am the Anatma. So when the body is born, I say I am born. When the body dies, I say I die. Similarly, the sense organs also we identify with ourselves. Mind also, intellect also. So this is called self-misconception. Ignorance of the true nature of the self leads to misconception about oneself. So ajnanam leads to adhyasaha. And once I mistake myself as this limited mortal body, all the problems of the body, mind, sense complex, all their limitations in terms of what we say, jara, mrityu, right? Old age, disease, death, all become my conditions. And their insecurity also becomes my insecurity. Their problems become my problems. Therefore, I get shackled. So this sense of limitation, the sense of being trapped, the sense of being shackled is called samsara. Here Shankaracharya calls it bandhaha. So the body, mind, sense complex by themselves, they're wonderful instruments, very, very useful. We can experience the world, right? We can transact with the world using the body, mind complex. And their availability as a costume is very useful. As long as I use them as instruments, which are different from me. Using them as a costume is not a problem. In fact, they're a blessing. But the moment we identify with them and we become then, when we become them, then they become shackles, and identification converts basically the costume, the koshas, into shackles. And therefore, for an ignorant person, they become bandhaha or samsara, shackles. So for a wise person, they are wonderful instruments. Here, Acharya says, right? Ahankaradi dehantan bandhan ajnana kalpitan. So ahankara here refers to vijnanamaya kosha. So we'll see that later. We can understand it as intellect. So ahankaradi vijnanamaya kosha, etc. Intellect, dehantan. Deha means physical body, beginning from the annamaya kosha. All the pancha koshas, they're all useful material costumes. Because of the ignorance and misconception, we convert them into bandhaha, shackles. That is why old age is frightening. For a jnani, old age is a fact. It is not a problem. For an ajnani, it is a frightening thing. Even somebody else's old age and death is frightening. No acceptability. Very difficult to accept this, right? In fact, life itself becomes a constant anxiety, right? And after a certain age, it becomes very high. So because we have converted everything into shackles, right? So for an ignorant person, for a samsari, the body, mind, sense complex is a shackle. But what is the desire of a Vedantic student? He wants to throw away all these shackles. Ahankaradi dehantan bandhan, the shackles. Moktum icha, which is mumukshuta, right? To drop, to throw away, to remove these shackles. That is mumukshuta. So now we should understand that removing the shackles does not mean removing the body. You have to remember that. Misidentification or adhyasa, misconception or misidentification or adhyasa has caused the shackles, right? So dropping the wrong identification with the body or dropping the mistaken notion, conclusion is removing the shackleness. So it's a cognitive conclusion, discerning that. It's an intellectual conclusion that I am the body. I have to drop this mistaken intellectual conclusion. So I should be able to deliberately assert, saying, I use this mortal body, but I'm not the mortal individual. I'm the immortal self. And this misconception will be dropped only when self-ignorance is dropped. And self-ignorance cannot be dropped by just, washing the head or cleaning it or, just putting the hand on the head, right? Ignorance can never be removed by any other method other than self-knowledge. So Acharya says, Swaswarupa avabodhena, by clear and convincing knowledge, a knowledge which cannot be gained by any other pramanam except Upajivya Vedanta Shabda Pramanam. Thus, by employing this pramanam with the guidance of a guru, Swaswarupa avabodha, a Vedantic student, a mature student, is very clear about what he wants, right? So, there are so many spiritual seekers who don't have the clarity about what they want. Very big problem. I've come across so many people in my classes who have become students of Swamiji, who have gone guru shopping, as Swamiji says, or going from class to class, reading books on their own, doing all kinds of things because they don't know how to go about it, right? So this person, an informed student, clearly knows what I want is self-knowledge and from a teacher. So, Swaswarupa avabodhena. So, Swaswarupam, one's own real nature, right, as the eternal Atma. He knows that is what he needs to learn, get the knowledge, right? And he knows I can use that knowledge to conduct my life. So, by the clear conviction that through this knowledge, I will be able to remove my shackles and use the knowledge to conduct my life better. So the desire to drop the shackles by understanding, that is moktum icha, or converting the shackles into useful instruments, right? So exactly like that. So whatever is a shackle, we intelligently convert it into a beautiful blessing. Body is not a burden. It is a blessing. Mind is not a burden. It is also a blessing. It will become a blessing only if I objectively use them without emotionally identifying with them. So, Swaswarupa avabodhena ahankaradi dehantan bandhan moktum icha. So, moktum means to drop, right? Muchidatu. So, drop, throw away, or you can also set free somebody else, like freeing a bird. So the desire, moktum icha, is the desire for throwing away the shackles, right? This mumukshuta, mumukshutvam, right? Both are the same meaning. Now there is another word here which we haven't seen yet, ajnana kalpitan. Ajnana kalpitan is a very, very important word, exactly like we saw Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, right? So Mithya is again a technical word. It is defined here by using another similar word called Ajnana Kalpitan, right? So what is Ajnana Kalpitam? For instance, you should understand the Vedantic terminologies, and Swamiji gives this very beautiful example. Now, suppose to a common man knows the meaning of freezing, right? So he understands as the normal freezing, which we all know, which is ice cold and snow and etc. Right? So it's a common word for us. But when you say freezing the account, right, it does not mean the account books are put inside the refrigerator. So it actually means something very different, right? So we need to understand the jargon related to that subject to understand the actual meaning or the intended meaning, right? So similarly, Mithya is a Vedantic term. Ajnana Kalpitam is a Vedantic term or jargons, right? And they have specific, unique meanings, right? So we'll see a simple translation now, but all these will get clear as we go ahead. Mithya is a very profound word, right? And the temporary meaning that we saw was anityam, anything that is anityam. So Brahma Satyam, Brahman is eternal. Jagan Mithya meaning world is non-eternal. So this is the provisional meaning that we actually saw. Now Ajnana Kalpitan also, we can treat it as anityam, and all the koshas basically are temporary. But what is the deeper meaning, right? So this we will be able to understand only when we get into the details of Vedanta, right? But the word Mithya also, like Shraddha, very, very difficult to translate, right? And to understand the concept of Mithya in a very general sense, we'll take a very simple example, right? Now, what is a dream? when we are in sleep, but not in deep sleep, in regular normal sleep where we have dream experiences, there is an experience of an internal world within ourselves. And that experience and that internal world is called dream or swapnaha. We all know that. So the dream is something, right? Or the dream world is something that we experience during sleep. In fact, according to researchers, all people experience dream, even though some people do not remember, right? And they claim I'd never have dreams. But science says everybody has dream. That's why Vedanta takes such an example. And what is the status of dream objects or the dream people, right? Or our own dream body? If you analyze, the dream world appears very much real during sleep, as long as we haven't woken up. As long as we continue to sleep, the dream would appear real. So the dream body appears real, the dream experience, however frightening they are, right? Or nice, they all appear real, right? So real means objectively existing, right? And it has a, how did we define real? We said it has objective existence, or objectively it is existing, and it has an independent existence of its own, right? Such that even if I don't see them, I consider those objects, the people, etc., who exist independent of me. Thus, I have an external world, right, which is independently existence. So that is reality. So they are all independently existent. And here I have the status of the dream world in dream. Now, the moment I wake up, what do I understand? The very same dream world, people, experiences, etc., are now understood differently after I have woken up. On awakening, we call the dream world and everything what? Unreal. It is understood as unreal. So what do we mean by unreal? They do not and cannot exist independent of me, the experiencer, the observer, right? It doesn't independently exist. And we are saying real means it has independent existence. Therefore, the dream has got a unique status. It consists of two parts. That which appears real and therefore independently existent during sleep. That which is understood as unreal and therefore existent, dependent on the observer. Second aspect. Let me repeat. It consists of two parts, the dream. A, that which appears real and therefore independently existent during sleep, right? B, that which is understood as unreal and therefore it is existent but dependent on the observer. This is the unique status of the dream world. So that which appears real during sleep and that which is understood as unreal on waking is the dream world. So Vedanta gives the word, right? Vedanta uses the word mithya to convey this idea. So Ajnana Kalpita and Mithya both. So Ajnana Kalpita means appearing during sleep. Ajnana means sleep. So Ajnana Kalpita, appearing during sleep. Because during sleep, we are ignorant of our Veka status. Mithya or Ajnana Kalpita means that which appears real during sleep and that which is understood as unreal on waking. Now, once we have understood and assimilated this concept of mithya with regard to the dream world, Vedanta, right, stuns you by saying, it extends that word and employs the same thing to this world and says we are experiencing this world during our waking state. Yes, but in the vision of Vedanta, even though we claim we are awake, we are spiritually asleep only. What do you mean by spiritual sleep? We are ignorant of our original nature, the eternal Atma status, which is different from this body, mind, sense complex. This knowledge we don't have. Therefore, we are ignorant. We are asleep to this very significant factor, which ignorance has made our life miserable. And that knowledge of which can make our lives into a great blessing, right? Which we are blissfully ignorant of. We are spiritually asleep according to Vedanta, right? And in that sleep state, this world appears to be real and existent, independent of me, the observer. I therefore, in ignorance, look at this world as independently existent. In fact, I think I am dependent on this world. But the reality is, the world is independent. The world is dependent on me. Right? So, and what do we think? We think that I am dependent on the world is independent of me, and after I go away, this world will continue, right? So the world is real and independently existent, and I am dependent on this world. This is our conclusion. Vedanta says, world appears to be real and independently existent only as long as we are spiritually asleep. And then Vedanta says, if we manage to wake up from our spiritual sleep, from this self-ignorance, when we have the spiritual awakening, we will understand the reality of the self and the unreality of the objective world. And this spiritual awakening does not mean any mystical experience. Spiritual awakening means clear understanding of our real nature. I am Panchakosha Vilakshana Nitya Atma. That's all. The understanding. This clear knowledge or understanding is spiritual awakening. Thus, in one and the same lifetime, the very same world appears different before and after Jnanam. So, for a Jnani, this world is clearly, doubtlessly, convincingly understood as unreal and dependently existent. Dependent on whom? On me, the observer. For a me doesn't mean this physical body. Me does not mean the mind or sense organs. Me means the real self, the Atma. So the Anatma Prapancha is understood to be existing, borrowing reality or borrowing existence from me, the original self. How do you know? Vedanta says, wake up and see, right? I'm willing to show you this fact about the world if you're available for me to help you in this awakening journey. That is all Vedanta can say. The rest is up to us, right? So waking up from the regular conventional sleep happens automatically because of prarabdha karma, but awakening from spiritual sleep will never happen naturally on its own. We have to work for it, and we have to use the scriptures, Vedanta Pramana. Vedanta suggests and says Uttishtata, Jagrata, right, in Kathopanishad. So we are actually, what an irony. We sing Suprabhatam for Bhagavan. Actually, as if Bhagavan is asleep. It should be the other way, right? It is we who needs to be woken up, right, from this spiritual sleep, right? So in Mandukya Karika, beautiful verse. Anadi Mayaya Sukto Yada Jivaha Prabudhyate Ajama Nidram Masap Swapnam Advaitam Budhyate Tada, right? It's all about awakening only when Prabudhyate Yada Jivaha Prabudhyate. So it's all about awakening only. And on awakening, we will understand that this world, which appeared independently and really existent, doesn't exist independently. So it is dependent on me, the observer, therefore it is mithya. Thus, moksha or awakening is dropping our identification with the mithya, body, mind, sense complex. So, ajnana kalpita means mithya, an understanding that this body, mind, sense complex is mithya. It is exactly like we understand that the dream body, mind, sense complex is mithya when we wake up, right? Exactly like that, I alone am satyam, Brahma satyam, jagan mithya, that profound declaration of the 10th, right, shloka will become meaningful only when we complete our Vedantic study. Until then, we translate mithya as impermanent, right? So, ahankaradi dehantan bandhanajnana kalpitan swaswarupava bodhena moktumicha mumukshuta. So now with this verse, Acharya concludes his discussion on the fourfold qualifications of a student desirous of self-knowledge. So he talked about Viveka, discrimination, Vairagyam, right, detachment, Shatka Sampattihi, the sixfold inner disciplines or wealth. And then now, of course, Mumukshutvam, desire for moksha. And the Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti itself, if you see, we saw Shamaha, Damaha, Uparamaha, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. Worth printing out these two slides and keeping. So in Mumukshutvam, which we just saw, we completed in the 17th verse, he defined moksha and then he said that the desire for that liberation is Mumukshutvam. Very important definition to be removed, which is to be remembered, which is moksha is dropping the identification with the body, mind, sense complex, not looking upon them as my real self, right? Because identification with body, mind, sense complex converts them into bondage, right? So whoever has these qualifications, these 4 qualifications is called an eligible student. And here Acharya only mentions the qualifications. He doesn't elaborate how to get these qualifications. He takes for granted that we will find our way. The answer is basically given in the Bhagavad Gita. So Gita thus becomes a very important spiritual text from the standpoint of acquiring the qualifications, because in the Bhagavad Gita alone it is elaborately discussed, neither in the Upanishad nor in the Brahma Sutra. And since Acharya doesn't discuss, so we just take a brief, look at this and method on how to get these qualifications. So the method described in the Gita is Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga as a complementary part. Basically, Upasana Yoga as complementary to Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga is a very ingenious spiritual discipline given by the Veda and the Gita, in which discipline I convert the entire world into a field of service. Once I do that, that very service will help me in attaining spiritual growth. Thus, the world will become a means, right, for taking me towards moksha. So the world becomes sort of a bridge, right? Instead of having, walls through which we will not be able to move, it actually world becomes a bridge. So we don't have to jump over or anything. Naturally, we progress and we are able to reach the destination of moksha. So Veda itself and of course Bhagavad Gita prescribes varieties of activities in the form of our service to the world. All of them help in our spiritual growth. So those spiritual exercises are called Nitya Naimittika Karmani, otherwise known as Niyata Karmani or Vihita Karmani, compulsory duties. And these help us in our internal spiritual growth. And many such karmas are prescribed. Karma meaning exercises or activities. Some of them are physical, some of them are verbal, and some of them are mental. Right? So, the very popular and well-known Pancha Maha Yajna is the best example or sample for Nitya Naimittika Karmani. So, because it is a comprehensive set of 5-fold spiritual exercises, so they are indicated in the Bhagavad Gita also, in Taittiriya Upanishad, in the first chapter, in the Brihadaranika Upanishad, Purusha Vida Brahmanam, the first chapter, 4th section also they are mentioned. So these disciplines are mentioned, but the word Pancha Maha Yajna, nor their enumeration is there in Gita or Upanishad. The specific word and its enumeration we find in the 2nd chapter of Taittiriya Aranyakam, which belongs to Krishna Yajurveda, in which there is a mantra which mentions and defines them. That mantra begins like this: Panchava ete mahayajñas satati pratayante satati santishtante devayajñaha pitrayajño bhutayajño manushayajño brahmayajña iti. So it is from Krishna Yajurveda, mantra 2.10.1. Because for many years I used to be looking for the source and I was so happy when Swamiji actually gave the source to us. So this is the beginning of that mantra. The 5 yajñas are defined also. But in Veda, these 5 are presented in the form of ritualistic activities. And many people today don't know the exact rituals. It can, however, be replaced by any other form of service activities also. So in this Pancha Mahayajna, the entire universe is divided into 5-fold infrastructure. gifted by the Lord for our own all-round growth. Family infrastructure, social or societal infrastructure, ecological infrastructure consisting of flora, fauna, plants, animals, the elemental infrastructure consisting of the Panchabhutas, and lastly, the most important Vedic cultural infrastructure consisting of both religious and spiritual aspects. So the Vedic culture is the ultimate and the most important infrastructure, right? So that is this family, society, ecology, or you should say environment, then the elements and culture. These are the fivefold infrastructures. And we should first appreciate each one of them as extremely important for all our achievements, all-round growth, for fulfilling dharma, artha, kama, and even moksha purushartha. A karma yogi first appreciates these fivefold infrastructures and then their contribution to us. The next step is every human being should own up the responsibility to preserve these, since they tend to become irresponsible or at least indifferent. So I'm responsible for contributing, preserving, improving the infrastructure for my benefit so that it will serve the future generations also. It will benefit the entire humanity also. This attitude helps one grow inwardly. Only if this awareness is there, I will serve voluntarily, right? It's very important. Earning is not just for one's own self or family. It is for serving. And I think that focus has gone down because I think in the previous generations, they used to insist that a portion of your income be kept aside for these kind of noble causes, etc. So, and the service done to the family is called Pitrayagnaha. Service to the society is called Manushya Yajnaha. Service to the environment is called Bhuta Yajnaha. Service to the fivefold elements, right? The Panchabhutas, you can take it as the Devatas that are governing it. So that is Deva Yajna. And service to our culture and the Rishi Parampara is Brahma Yajnaha. Thus Pitri Yajnaha, Manushya Yajnaha, Bhuta Yajnaha, Deva Yajnaha, and Brahma Yajnaha. So everyone, especially every spiritual seeker, should follow them in accordance with his or her own capacity. So we need not compare ourselves with others, but we have to contribute our might, and it should be done with humility and reverence. And only when it is reverentially done, it is a yajna. Otherwise, it will be called a seva, and seva or service becomes yajna only when there is humility and devotion. So for developing this reverential attitude only, we have included Upasana Yoga also as a sadhana, because in Upasana Yoga, I meditate upon God as a provider, as a giver of the fivefold infrastructure, and therefore I thank the Lord. Thus, Upasana Yoga helps me develop reverence to all these infrastructures. Vishwarupa Upasana is very elaborately discussed in Bhagavad Gita, chapters 7 to 12, the Madhyama Shatkam. And when I practice that, I understand that the whole world is not only a gift of God. In fact, it is the very manifestation of God. Therefore, the world is divided into this fivefold infrastructure, and my service to that, in fact, becomes my worship of God. So, in Upadesha Sara of Ramana Maharishi, Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Deva Pujanam. So, if we but recognize the universe of this eightfold form as the form of God Himself and serve in adoration of this world, right? That is the best form of worship to God. So thus in Upasana Yoga, I develop a reverential attitude towards the entire creation. And in Karma Yoga, with that reverential attitude, I serve my family, society, environment, etc. So both Upasana Yoga and Karma Yoga, they complement each other and help us in getting these internal values, which is Viveka, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. And in Upasana Yoga, I meditate upon God as either a particular deity or as Vishwarupa Ishvara, or universal God. And for practicing Upasana, I have to learn to withdraw my senses, Shamaha, and mind, Damaha, from the external world, senses and mind. And I should make the mind calm and quiet to focus on Ishvara. Therefore, in Upasana Yoga, I develop the ability to withdraw the mind, shamaha, the ability to withdraw the senses, damaha, uparamaha, to sit quiet for some time, samadhanam, the faculty of focusing upon God. So shamaha, damaha, uparamaha, samadhanam, we develop, right, through upasana yoga. And the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita dwell on the karma yoga. And the next 6 chapters focus on upasana yoga. And the last 6 chapters on jnana yoga. Thus, Bhagavad Gita helps in developing the 4-fold qualifications, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, the 4 Ds, through karma and upasana. So, Acharya assumes that we have gone through karma yoga and upasana yoga and have developed reasonable sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. And now Acharya says, such an eligible student should enter jnana yoga. And how should one enter? By going towards a qualified guru. Guru upasadanam, or approaching a guru for learning jnana yoga. So that is the next topic, which starts from the 18th verse, right? We'll read. So this is the verse, the mantra, right, which I read out from Krishna Yajurveda. In case anybody wants, it's available in the slide. So Guru Upasadanam is the next topic. Ukta sadhana sampannaha
Ukta sadhana sampannaha
tattva jijñāsuratmanaha
tattva jijñāsuratmanaha
upasided gurum prajñam
upasided gurum prajñam
yasmad bandha vimokshanam.
yasmad bandha vimokshanam.
So the karma yoga, right, upasana yoga or karma yoga. So if we don't mention upasana yoga separately, it is understood to be part of karma yoga, is presented as the first stage, and jnana yoga is presented as the second stage. Thus, these 2 yogas are considered to be sequential yogas, one after the other. So, however, we need not follow it exactly in that, technical order. Practically, what we do is, initially we are karma yoga pradhana in our life, right? Then we expose ourselves to scriptural teachings. So jnana yoga should be there even for a karma yogi, right? In form of exposure to teachings, maybe half an hour per week, or listening to Bhagavad Gita, right, once a week or something. And even Bhagavad Gita, you can start as a karma yogi so that you will at least know what jnana yoga is, right? And not only that, the very shravanam, listening to the scriptures like Gita, will help him in developing these qualifications also. So therefore, karma yoga also involves jnana yoga, but in a very, very small proportion, right? Then as I become more and more mature, I will move gradually. The shift happens gradually. So from karma yoga pradhana to jnana yoga pradhana life. And when I become jnana yoga pradhana, I don't totally drop karma yoga. The karma yoga disciplines will continue. Even if a person becomes a sannyasi and dedicates his life to jnana yoga, even in sannyasa ashrama, some karma yoga disciplines are there for a vividisha sannyasi, right? A person who is a sannyasi, who is a student on the scriptural learning journey. So therefore, the general approach is initially karma yoga dominates, jnana yoga is also there. Later, jnana yoga dominates, karma yoga also continues. So here Acharya says, Ukta sadhana sampannaha, a student leading a karma yoga pradhana life for a length of time generally enters grihastha-ashrama. A householder's life is called, right, an ashrama, because a family man is supposed to use his family life for karma yoga and upasana yoga. That is why daily parayanam like Vishnu Sahasranamam, etc. was very common in Hindu families, and a recitation becomes karma yoga, and before parayanam there is a dhyana shloka in every, whether it's Lalita Sahasranamam or Vishnu Sahasranamam, you will have a dhyana shloka that becomes the upasana yoga. So I am supposed to practice Vishnu Dhyanam before the Sahasranama Parayanam. So thus in every Grihastha's life, Veda incorporates Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. And Ukta Sadhana Sampannaha means one who is rich in the above mentioned 4 qualifications. Moreover, Tattva Jignasuhu Atmanaha, and this is because he is exposed to Jnana Yoga also, scriptural study also this person has, and he knows I have to gain self-knowledge. He has some understanding, right? So it is basically a 3-stage internal conversion. First, I am a seeker of liberation without knowing what gives liberation. That is called mumukshu, right? Mumukshuta. In the next stage, from exposure to Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, etc., I know that I have to seek self-knowledge, right? First, I don't know what I'm seeking. I know that I need knowledge that gives liberation. Then I'm seeking self-knowledge. At that time, I'm called a jignasu. So the conversion, mumukshu to jignasu, is very important. So there are many people who are seekers of liberation, but do not know that for self-knowledge, scriptural study under a guru is compulsory, right? So they go and sit and do who am I meditation for several months. You won't get knowledge out of it, right? So therefore, the conversion of a jignasu, then finally into a shushrushaha, right, is very important. So shushrushaha means I'm a seeker of scriptural study under a guru. So seeker of liberation, seeker of scriptural knowledge by studying under a guru. So mumukshu to jignasu to shushrushu, this internal conversion is very, very important. Otherwise, I will continue to grow up in the darkness. And therefore, Acharya says, all the 3 stages, conversions have taken place, right? Tattva jignasuhu atmanaha, this mumukshu has become a jignasu, meaning a desirer of knowledge. Atmanaha tattvam, desirer of his real nature, right? So he is desiring his real nature. And what should he do? Upasidet gurum prajnam. He has become a shushrushu, generally used in the meaning of service, but shrotum icha, desire to listen and learn from a guru is shushrusha. And for that, I must first serve the guru. And after service alone, I should ask for knowledge. So shushrusha is generally used in the secondary meaning of service because of that, right? It is part of serving the teacher also. So the primary meaning is desirous of Shravanam. So Shushrushu is one who is interested in the study of scriptures, and Shravanam is a length of time. In fact, in Chandogya Upanishad, there is one particular story where, Indra goes to the teacher. He serves the guru in the ashrama, right? Dvatrigum Shatam Varshani, 32 years he's asked to serve. So he's taught Vishwa. Another 32 years, Taijasa. Another 32 years, Prajna. And finally, the 4th time, he spends another 5 years. So totally 101 years, he serves the Guru. Right? So it says, Tan ekashatam sampeduhu etat yat yahuhu ekashatam havai varshani maghavan prajapato brahmacharyam uvasa. Right? So therefore, Acharya says, this 101 years, what does it indicate? It is very important to approach a Guru. Right? So he already mentioned this in the 6th verse, Daya Sindhum Brahma Viduttamam Gurum Samasadhya, right? We saw that already, right? So because knowledge has to be gained through or with the help of only a guru. So without the guru, if you study just by reading books, it will never be efficacious, right? Very, very important. So we require a guru. There are a lot of instances in the Veda where, you will see the student approaching the guru with reverence and requesting, asking, etc. And what type of guru? Prajnam, right? Here it is not the Tattva Bodha meaning, right? Not Vishwa, Tejasa, Prajna, etc. Here Prajnaha means an enlightened, wise guru. Prakarshena janati iti prajnaha, then prajnaha eva prajnaha eva prajnaha. This is what Swamiji, I remember very clearly giving this definition, saying it is not the Tejasa Prajna, right? So, Yasmad Bandha Vimokshanam. For what purpose? For the purpose of moksha, right? For removing the shackles. For that reason, you approach the guru and through systematic teaching, right? So, we'll stop here today and we will continue with it in the next class, right? So, the guru should be approached with reverence and then, the teaching starts. So, we'll see more later. पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः